Still small baby and little, but definitely looking more and more like actual adult Hadedahs each and every single day. Good morning, you three. And how are we? I always find it absolutely astounding the speed with which baby birds go from naked, totally fragile and vulnerable little creatures to fully fledged miniature versions of the adults, at least in terms of the birds such as Hadedahs and passerines and so on. Obviously the raptors take a little bit longer. But already over the course of the last few weeks, we've seen these little things change from fluffy little creatures to now, if you look closely, you can start to see the adult feathers coming through. The one on the right is undoubtedly, I don't want to call it the runt. I don't suppose you can really use that term for baby birds. He's not the runt of the litter, he's just one of the later hatchlings. This one's clearly a day or two behind in terms of development. It's much, much smaller than its siblings. Oh, and getting jostled, which is inevitable in a day in the life of a tiny chick. Actually, no, I'm wrong, I'm sorry. It looks as though the two in the front are smaller than the one at the back. There's lots of jostling for space happening. Oh, a bit of allo grooming. Searching for ticks and mites. Interestingly enough, Brian just pointed this out to me. One of them went to defecate and waddled to the edge of the nest and defecated outside of the nest and then went back in. So, like quite a few birds, they've clearly, oh, feed me, mommy, feed me, breakfast. They've clearly got the instinct not to sully the nest site by defecating inside of it, which is a very, very good thing. It means that the spread of bacteria and parasites is reduced. Hello, Mom. I assume you are Mom. I'm pretty sure that with Hadedah ibis, Mom spends most of the time looking after babies. They got all excited there. They thought she was going to bring them something to eat. Begging in the way that chicks do. This is the joy of our live safaris, is that we get to watch families like this grow up. It's going to be absolutely amazing keeping track of your screenshots and having a look at the way in which they've changed day to day and week by week. And very soon there will be 3 additional adult Hadedahs flying around. I'd love to know what age they start to make that sound. The wah wah Hadedah sound. Perhaps it's my imagination, but that female does look a little bit exhausted and run down, rather harried. Your mum doesn't have anything for you. Ravenous creatures. Oh. Watching anxiously over her shoulder. I can hear a lion roaring in Little Gowrie, which I think we're going to hope that decides to come north. It sounds like a male. So we'll stick for now with our Hadedah family. Watch them go about their daily business. Them all curled up together. And I always feel this way when I look at nests like this, that they look completely unstable. They don't look sturdy at all. They look as though the slightest movement could bring them crashing down. And I found myself in awe of the nest-building abilities of birds like Hadedahs and buffalo weavers and raptors as well, that are able to build these incredibly fragile-looking nests that apparently are much more stable than they look, because last night was unbelievably windy at one point. The wind was gusting through as this cold front came in and hit the Sabi sand. And somehow those nests stay perfectly in place. It's very seldom that you see a big nest like this that's been blown out of a tree. Now, Ali, you want to know, while we watch our baby birds beg Mom for food, I feel feel for her. He wants to know how baby birds avoid getting cramps or deformities by sitting still in the nest all the time. I think it's just a case of relatively regular movement. They do get up and stretch their legs and move up and down a little bit. Just earlier on, when we first got here, all three of them were stretching out their wings and probably strengthening their wing muscles. And I think you'll probably find that the muscle structure of birds, will definitely find that the muscle structure of birds is subtly different from that of people as well. Of course, we know that their way of breathing and their terms of, or their way of approaching oxygen distribution with air pockets inside their bodies as well as inside their lungs is also adapted for being able to fly and being able to do something that is that high energy, or that energy intensive. I think you'll find that they generally don't get any kind of deformities or cramps, and they do shuffle around all the time. Baby birds, even when they're small and naked, will spend a lot of time moving their bodies, just strengthening, oh, big yawn, strengthening the muscles that they need for future use. That would be my guess. I don't know. I've never had baby birds or raised baby birds in a nest. You know what I mean. Nesting birds. Obviously, I've never had baby birds in a nest. But I have watched many, many different species of birds grow up. All the way up here, they are relatively protected from quite a few threats. But Claire, you want to know how many of these baby chicks will survive? I think all three of them potentially could, provided they don't get unlucky. And by unlucky, I mean their discovery by something like a caracal or a serval. A serval is probably more likely, although a serval is more common here. It's less likely to climb all the way to the top of this tree. A leopard would. One of Karula's cubs, if they happen to stumble across this, they would undoubtedly kill the hatchlings, and they would, if that did occur, it would be all three of them. And the same applies to, actually, potentially, if they get found by baboons. Baboons are also a serious threat. At this age, they're probably past the threat of most snakes. It would, a boomslang would not be able to consume a hardy-dart chick this big. Not even in its wildest dreams, and not even with the ability to completely unhinge its jaw. But I think any event that kills a chick will kill all three of them at this age, if you understand what I mean. So if it's discovery by another predator, chances are it will kill them. The other thing that could potentially harm them, although they've survived, the fact that they've survived this long, I think, is a suggestion that it won't happen. I think that a sudden cold snap, as has occurred today, could take its toll on the slightly smaller one. It's not the same as a situation with raptors, where with raptors or with ground hornbill, only one chick will ever survive, or it's very rare that two chicks do survive. And almost invariably that's caused by active aggression from the older chick and a sort of a passive lack of feeding by the parents, because the older chick just outcompetes for the younger for attention and for food. It doesn't work that way with passerines and with ibises and with all sorts of birds of this nature. They would tend to raise all of their chicks together relatively successfully. So as long as mommy ibis gets lucky, unfortunately, if a predator does come through, there will be nothing that she can do, which is why baby birds have to fledge so quickly. The less time they spend at this vulnerable stage, the better for their survival. Michael's asked a question that I've been thinking of as well, and that I don't actually know the answer to. Michael wants to know, when it is time for them to learn to fly, will they test their wings and in the tree and then jump off and try and fly, or will they go from the ground? I'm relatively certain they're going to try and fly from this branch and fly from this tree. It is going to be, I'm hoping, wouldn't it be wonderful if we're here for it? It would be wonderful to actually see them learn to take those first flaps. You can't really call them first steps, can you? First flaps. And I think it's probably going to be quite painful looking. Luckily, baby birds are relatively inured to long drops. A lot of baby birds, like goslings and ducklings, they are off the stage of a tree onto the ground. Well, I think they're probably going to launch themselves from this tree, but I don't think they're going to be successful. I think it's going to be a little bit of a tumble and a thump onto the ground, and from there then they'll try and flap up and fly up from the ground itself. That would be my guess, Michael. I've never seen baby Hadedahs learn to fly, but that would be my suggestion. They've got to get down somehow. So the initial stages would be thoroughly entertaining and actually probably somewhat concerning to witness as they tumble out of the boughs of this jackalberry tree. It is the perfect home. It's sheltered, it's large, it's spacious, it's covered from aerial predators. Oh, that's another predator that could actually be a danger to them, is a gymnogene or a harrier hawk. All in all, I think we've been very fortunate to have this Hadeda ibis nest. It provided us with a huge amount of ability to actually learn about the way in which this process works. See what a beautiful tree it is? And a very good morning to Aaron. Now, Aaron, what we should do actually is we should go back to, now I'm just thinking aloud, this wasn't your question at all, but I was thinking that we should go back and actually plot the time of development of these chicks and work out exactly how long it has taken them to fledge. But Aaron wants to know which chicks will leave the nest the soonest. I would guess and say one of the smaller passerines. And by that, I'm talking utter nonsense. Because the ground nesting birds leave the nest as soon as they hatch. So they are born precocial. As soon as they hatch from the little scrapes in the ground that their moms make, they will be up and bobbing along with her. So that applies to lapwings, bronze-winged coursers, temminck's coursers, all of the ground nesting birds. What are you doing, little one? Settling in for a nap. Oh, that jostling. Must be very uncomfortable having to share your nest with two siblings. Yeah, Mum. I'm begging for food. But Aaron, I know that's actually not what you meant. I think you were thinking along the lines of nesting birds with altricial chicks, in other words, underdeveloped chicks. My guess would be for those, probably something small. The smaller they are, I imagine, the faster they will fledge. And so you're probably looking at something like a waxbill or a flycatcher would be my guess in terms of fledging time. I can actually find out for you, Aaron, and get back to you on that, or at least try and get into that sort of, get a rough idea as to which family group. But obviously the ground nesting birds would be the most rapid. The longest, ground hornbills, raptors, a lot of the raptor species, they're going to take a long time to fledge. Ah, Tomand, you want to know what bird sounds we're hearing in the background, and I have to say there's lots of sound happening at the moment. There is a woodland kingfisher, as is always inevitable, the chirp, and then very dominantly the Cape turtle dove, or the ring-necked dove. There is a orange-breasted bushshrike. There is a series of cisticulars making quite an ugly rattling sound. There were crested barbets trilling away merrily above my head. They've stopped now, they've moved on. There is a scrub robin chirping. I can hear a crested franklin. And I can hear an emerald-spotted wood dove. So let's go through those. Hold on. I'm going to play with my ability to do this now. Hopefully it works. Right. While we watch our Hadeda chicks. Let's go alphabetically because it's the easiest for me. That is the orange-breasted bushshrike. I'm just calling. Could you hear that clearly, Brian? Thank you. Now let's go back. I don't know how to do this. Oh goodness. I finally managed to get my bird app back up and running. What else did I say we were hearing? Let me play you the emerald-spotted wood dove, because that was probably the most faint of all of the calls that we were hearing. And I have to confess, that is one of my favorite calls of any bird. I love that call. I think it's utterly beautiful. There he's calling there. Calling back to me. And then, of course, this is what this Hadeda ibis would sound like if she were to call. Perhaps not quite as beautiful as the dawn chorus, or some of the calls. There we go. We'll stop there because there's such a wide range of calls that I can't go through all of them this morning. I suppose we could, but I'm curious to see what else is out here. This is my favorite time to be out, first thing in the morning, so I think we'll leave our Hadeda chicks to go about